go ahead and start. We're in Act 1, Scene 2. Hamlet gets his first soliloquy. And bear in mind, I mentioned it before. So, soliloquy. When a character delivers a soliloquy, he or she, this is the definition, is alone on the stage. 1247 in the 11th edition. 1247. He or she is alone on the stage. Alone obviously means there is nobody else there. Okay? Reason I'm emphasizing this is because when we get to Act 3, Hamlet delivers a speech that is called, and your book calls it, the greatest soliloquy in the English language. It's not a soliloquy. Hamlet's not alone on the stage. The character Ophelia is on the stage. Okay? Also, in a soliloquy, nobody else in the play hears the speaker's words. One obvious reason being because nobody else is on the stage. Another reason is, in a soliloquy, what the character is doing is thinking. We are, via the technique, so to speak, of the soliloquy, we are taken inside the character's mind. We are hearing that thought. That thought is just being spoken out to us as the audience. Okay? In that scene in Act 3, when Hamlet delivers that to be or not to be speech, two other characters hear everything he says. Ophelia may or may not hear it. But two other characters, the king and Polonius, hear it. Because when Hamlet leaves, they talk about what he said. Okay? So this, Act 1, Scene 2, beginning line 129, 25, 26, 27, 28, 129, this is a soliloquy. I think it's the first soliloquy in the play. It takes us, as I said, inside Hamlet's mind. It lets us know what he's really thinking and what's really important to him. Oh, that this too sullied flesh would melt, thaw, and resolve itself into a dew, or that the everlasting had not fixed his canon against self-slaughter. Oh God, oh God. Okay? We got to look at that first couple lines first, because they're really important. Your book says, oh, that this too sullied flesh. What does sully mean? If this shirt were sullied, what would that mean for it? What would it look like? It'd be dirty. It'd be stained. It would be tainted. It would be corrupted. All right? Sullied means dirty, stained, tainted, corrupted. You could get theological and say full of sin, right? But it implies all of those things. It's not pure, it's not innocent, it's not good. Oh, that this too dirtied, fouled, rotten, diseased, sinful flesh would melt, thaw, and resolve itself into a dew. Okay, it's a little hard. Look at the other reading. This is the reading, instead of sullied, in the first folio publication of Hamlet. Oh, that this too solid flesh would melt, thaw, and resolve itself into a dew. Now, if you look at just those two readings, which of those is the easier to understand according to the words that are in those lines? Imagine for a moment that this was not liquid, but was frozen solid. I put it in the freezer overnight. We could stand here, we could sit here for the next nearly hour and a half and watch it slowly, gradually melt. Okay? Imagine for a moment then, I had a stove here. Pot, I pour the ice into the pot, turn it on high, put a lid on with tubing, cork corkscrew tubing and another pot or glass or something for whatever's in that to become in this. It's the process of what? Distillation. If you take this water, which is not straight from the manufacturer, it's filled up various places, it's not pure, in other words, this has impurities in it. If I took this water and boiled it and gathered the steam in that tube so that it came out the other end, what would that water be called? Distilled. What does that mean? It's pure. It has no impurities in it. There'd be no fluoride, nothing else would be in it. It would be 100% pure water, okay? These lines are talking about the process of purification, the process of refining, the process of taking something that was rotten and making it whole or making it healthy. That this 2-2 solid flesh would melt, thaw, and resolve. Well, you can understand something solid melting and thawing. Something sullied, however, melting and thawing, that's a little harder. There is a principle There's a principle in textual editing, which is a branch of English studies, called lectio difficilior, and you can include that last word, potior, also. And what that phrase means is the more difficult reading, and then with the potior, is stronger or better. And what that means is, when you've got two different versions of a text, in this case Hamlet, that's a version, that's a version. How do you know which one is the right one? Or how do you know which one is the better one? Well, this principle says the reading that is more difficult, the reading that is harder, is more than likely the better one. For the simple reason that the author probably has come up with the harder thing. And when somebody copies that, I could write something out and hand it around and have you copy it, and then the copy you made go to you, you copy it, that one go to, and go all the way around the room, so we would end up with about 8 or 9 different copies. If we were to compare the last one produced by the last person with what I originally submitted, they would not be identical. It doesn't mean you intentionally make changes, it just means you read something and you might not be able to read my handwriting. And because he couldn't read my handwriting, misunderstands something, writes something that he thinks it says, and then that keeps happening so that this word written in Renaissance English handwriting and spelling, there's no standardized spelling in Shakespeare's day. Shakespeare spelled his name 3 different ways, his last name. It's on 3 different documents. We have 6 signatures. It's spelled 3 different ways, all right? This word, which is spelled this way in modern English, could be spelled that way in Renaissance English. What's the difference between that and that? It's the O. I handed back papers to my Shakespeare students yesterday, and I said, I'll apologize right now, or Tuesday, said, I apologize right now, because it looks like I was drunk when I was writing on these things. I've been told I'm the wrong kind of doctor. I should be a medical doctor who usually can't read their writing. My O's often look like that. I don't connect the O all the way at the top. So you can see how this, if someone sees that and they don't know what it means, because not everybody who copied manuscripts were as smart as Shakespeare, okay? That could, that the 2-2 solid, what does that mean? Solid, flesh. Well, flesh is solid. That makes sense. It's a lot harder to understand flesh being dirtied, fouled, rotten, corrupted, broken. Okay? What's Hamlet talking about? Use this reading. Oh, that this too sullied, rotten, foul, dirtied flesh would melt, thaw, and resolve itself into a dew. What's the resolve? Reform, remake, made new. He's talking about transformation or reformation, possibly even resurrection. Okay? It's also introducing what idea? Death. That process doesn't happen here. Or that the everlasting had not fixed his canon against self-slaughter. What is self-slaughter? That is the literal English translation of a Latin word. Sui, self, side, murder. Hamlet's, not his very first words, but his very first soliloquy, where we actually hear him unburden his heart, tells us what? He's thinking about suicide. Okay? And how is he thinking about it? If only God hadn't outlawed it. Why did the everlasting fix his canon? Canon means law, rule, order against suicide. What can you not do after you commit suicide? After you kill yourself? What can you not say to God? Sorry. You can't repent for it. Repentance implies you're going to stop what you're doing. You can't do that after the fact. Okay? You can't repent of something you haven't yet done. Though we're going to see, because I'm going to talk about it a little bit later, not today, we're going to see in the Middle Ages, the Catholic Church came up with a doctrine called the doctrine of indulgences. That did pretty much allow people to repent for something they had not yet done and act as if they're all free and clear with God. It's what led largely to the Protestant Reformation, which we'll also be talking about. As I said, this is Shakespeare's most religious play. He's dealing with all kinds of issues of Catholicism and Protestantism. Okay? So, and then he says, "Oh, how weary, stale, flat, and unprofitable seem to me all the uses of this world." If you've ever known someone who's been suicidal, or someone who's committed suicide, and you talk to them beforehand, or if you ever have this happen yourself, okay, God forbid it, this is exactly what suicides say before they kill themselves. What is how weary, stale, flat, and unprofitable seem to me all the uses of the world really mean? It's pointless. There's nothing good. There's no profit out of this world. And I don't mean money. It doesn't do me any good. It's weary, meaning it is wearying. I don't know about you. I've had times when I've just felt like the world is just beating me down. Okay? It's stale. It lacks flavor. It lacks taste. It's flat, meaning it's textureless. There's nothing good about it. Hamlet's looking down that tunnel, and he doesn't see any daylight. Fie on it. Fie. Translate fie to modern English. It's another F word. F it. 'Tis an unweeded garden that grows to seed. Things rank and gross in nature possess it merely. Why is the world, first of all, a garden? Go back to the creation story. does it begin? The Garden of Eden. What happened to the Garden of Eden? According to the creation story, Adam and Eve screwed up. And then they got kicked out. It metaphorically still exists somewhere. But what happened to the rest of the world? The pollution that began in the garden spread throughout the world. I mean, one of the curses is that Adam will have to work by the sweat of his brow, and he'll have to deal with the weeds. He didn't have to deal with that in the Garden of Eden, metaphorically at least. It is an unweeded garden that grows to seed. So go back to the garden unweeded for a moment. What happens to a garden if you don't weed it? Weeds spread. What are weeds? Are weeds, quote unquote, bad, evil plants? No, they're just plants that aren't supposed to be there. What do weeds tend to do? They overpower the stuff you want growing in the garden. They take its place. They usurp the garden, just as what usurped the time of night we saw in the first scene. That image of the ghost. Okay? So they, the weeds, do what? They grow to seed. The seeds of the weeds come out of the flowers, they drop to the ground, more weeds grow. Things rank and gross in nature possess it merely. Rank, that means foul. Gross in nature means overly large, growing outside their boundaries, going beyond what they should. What does he have in mind? Well, he gives us an implication in the remainder of these lines. Hamlet has a couple of people in mind: his stepfather and his mother. That it should come to this. But 2 months dead. Nay, not so much. Not 2. Who's the but 2 months dead referred to? Hamlet Sr., his dead father. But he says it's not 2 months. So it's under 2 months. So excellent a king that was to this Hyperion to a satyr. Does Hamlet, in your mind's eye, does Hamlet do anything when he says that was to this? Go away. You do one stupid search for cars, and every car sales agent starts sending you all kinds of texts and stuff. I think when he says the to this, he points to where Claudius had been. My father, the dead king, he says, so excellent a king that was to this Hyperion to a satyr. Your gloss tells you Hyperion was the sun god in the older Greek tradition. The older Greek tradition is during the reign of the Titans. The Titan gods, or the Titans, were the gods that preceded the Olympian gods. In the Olympian reign, Apollo or Phoebus was the sun god, right? So he's saying, my father was like Hyperion. And the Titan gods, among some, were thought to be better than the Olympians. But he was a Hyperion compared to not another god, a satyr. What's a satyr? Half man, half goat. He's a man from about here up, from the belly up. Got a head like a man, arms like a man, belly and chest like a man. From here down, he's like a goat, walking on its hind legs. So it's got hooves, okay, hairy legs, not fully human, not fully beast. If he's half man, half beast, what is he? Almost by definition, a monster. You shouldn't have that. And it's also half goat because goats were the symbol throughout the Middle Ages and Renaissance of lechery, sexual looseness, okay, just sleeping with anything that moves. And in the ancient Greek literature, literally anything that moves, okay? He says, my father so loved my mother that he would pray that the winds would stop if she went outside so it wouldn't blow her hair around. He says, she would hang on him as if increase of appetite had grown by what it fed on. She would hang on him like he was a fruit tree. Like if she ate some of his fruit, metaphorically speaking, that increased her appetite. What should eating do? It should satiate your appetite. It makes your appetite go away. No, the more she fed on him, the hungrier she got. Excuse me. And yet, within a month, let me not think on it. So before it was, but 2 months dead, nay, not 2. Now it's within a month. That means less than a month. Let me not think on it. Why? His father's not even been dead a month. And the thing he doesn't want to think about is not his father being dead. That's bad enough. It's what happened since then. Frailty, thy name is woman. Why? Why is she frail? What is he saying about his mother? It's going to be brought out explicitly in the remaining lines. Why was she frail? Does he mean frail as in she has gentle nerves, you can't speak harshly to her or she'll just fall apart? Does he mean frail as in she's physically weak? No. She has something inside that makes her frail. A little month, or ere those shoes were old with which she followed my poor father's body. He says, even a beast lacking reason would have mourned longer. So, go back. Why she, even she, dash, comment, dash. She, even she what? Married with my uncle, my father's brother, but no more like my father than I to Hercules, within notice what's bothering him. She married too soon. That's probably number one. She didn't properly mourn her husband. That's the first problem. What's the second problem? And this one might actually be the bigger one. Ere yet the salt of most unrighteous tears had left the flushing in her galled eyes, she married before the tears even dried on her face. Now, he's speaking metaphorically. She married, O most wicked speed to post with such dexterity to incestuous sheets. And you've got a gloss for dexterity, which is idiotic. I mean, I understand what it means. With facility, it says. What does facility mean? See, we use facility today to mean pretty much one thing, like a facility, a place where something is done. That's not what it means here. This means with agility. Like, man, she could not wait to get into bed with Claudius. She's like a world-class gymnast, just hopping into bed so fast. With most wicked speed. With such dexterity to what? Incestuous sheets. Why is jumping into bed with her dead husband's brother incest? Because the Old Testament says so. According to the Old Testament, husbands can't marry brothers' wives. Wives can't marry husbands' brothers. Husbands can't marry daughters. Daughters can't marry fathers. Fathers can't marry daughters. Daughters can't marry fathers. Sons can't marry mothers. Mothers can't marry sons. That's one of the big things in the Oedipus play. So, if Hamlet's thinking his mother's committing incest with his uncle now / stepfather, ew, there's a problem there, right? For him, there's a huge problem. Now go back. Oh, that this too sullied flesh or solid flesh? He's thinking he's dirty, rotten, foul. What's he thinking about his mother? Hamlet hasn't committed incest. A lot of readers, especially over the last 50 years, think this speech, it's not about Hamlet's attitude towards Gertrude. That this speech is betraying Hamlet's desires. The Oedipus complex. Hamlet, Oedipus told his mother, I have these dreams, wanting to sleep with my mother. She goes, don't worry about it. All men have that dream. Doesn't mean anything. Freud said it did, and ever since then, critics have read this play kind of suggesting that. It is not, nor it cannot come to good. What is the it is not? It is not good that she married my uncle, nor can it come to good. In other words, this is going to have repercussions. Think of that great chain of being. She's at the top of society, screwing around, literally, messing things up. That is going to taint everything afterwards. But break my heart, for I must hold my tongue. Why is he telling his heart to break? Why must he hold his tongue? Who can he tell? Can he go have a talk with his mom? Probably not. How old is Hamlet? How old does he sound? We're going to find out in Act 5 exactly how old he is. And it's probably going to be a surprise. Okay? But break my heart. Hamlet's telling us his heart is broken. For I must hold my tongue. He can't do what? What do therapists, counselors, etc. tell you if you're going through serious shit, Talk to somebody. Get it out. Get it off your chest. Why? Because what does it do when you don't get it off your chest? Like weeds in a garden, those ideas just grow. Those problems just metastasize like cancer. And they will break your heart. They will destroy your heart until you get to the point of, but you get it out. You get it in the open, so to speak. It's purifying. Okay? So he's wrestling with the idea of purification, rebirth, resurrection, all that at the same time as with this rotten foulness. I don't think I've ever made this allusion before. Depending upon your version of the Bible, either Psalm 50 or Psalm 51. It's David's great psalm of contrition after he is told by a prophet, I know what you did. And what he did was he slept with Bathsheba, another man's wife. He saw her bathing on the roof, said to a servant, bring her here. He had sex with her. She got pregnant. He knew that. He sends her husband, who is his chief commander, into the hottest part of the battle, trying to get him killed, okay? Gets him killed, etc. And the prophet comes to him and says, I know everything you've done. And David delivers this beautiful psalm of contrition, okay? Where he asks for God's mercy, blah, blah, blah. And he says in there, create in me a clean heart, O God. Renew a right spirit within me. Because it begins with, or it ends with, God loves a broken in contrite heart. It's got to be broken. Why? So that the foul part can be discarded. Okay? Horatio comes in. And it might be that he says, for I must hold my tongue because he sees them coming. So, Hamlet asks, what are you doing here, Horatio? Horatio is a student at Wittenberg, the same university, it's one of the oldest universities in Germany, that Hamlet is a student at. Remember the scene with Claudius, just before Claudius and Gertrude left? Claudius said, we want you to stay here, we don't want you to go back to Wittenberg. Why? You're next in line to the throne and all that kind of stuff. Horatio says, oh, I'm just a truant. I like skipping school. Hamlet, that's not the real answer. Tell me the truth. Why are you really here? I came to see your father's funeral. I came to pay my respects. And the respects are paid not only to Hamlet Sr. Why do people often go to a funeral? It's not for the dead person, right? Because the dead person doesn't know. It's for the families. It's to show support, love, all that kind of stuff for those who are left behind, left alive. Don't mock me. You came to see my mother's wedding. Indeed, my lord, it followed hard upon. Meaning, hey, you know, as a freebie, it was like 2 for the price of 1. Your dad died, your mom got married. Bing, bam. Like one happened one day, the other happened the next day. Not literally, okay? Hamlet, thrift, Horatio. The funeral baked meats did coldly furnish forth the marriage tables. Like, they had all this food, they had all this stuff spread out for the wake after the funeral, and there were leftovers, and they just used that to do, you know, the meal and stuff after the wedding. And Hamlet says, methinks I see my father. Horatio says, where, my lord? What should Horatio do when he says that? Or should he do anything? Where did we last see Horatio? Between the hours of 12 and 1 in the morning, and he saw Hamlet's father's ghost. See, I think when Hamlet says, methinks I see my father, Horatio goes, where? Because he's wondering if Hamlet now sees the ghost too. In my mind's eye, I saw him once. He was a goodly king. Yeah, he was a man, taken for all in all. That is, he was just like other men, Horatio. I shall not look upon his like again. His like. We shall not see men like him. And this is an old idea. It's the idea of, you know, our predecessors were better than we are. I mean, the United States still talks today about the greatest generation. What? Those young men, 16 to 20 or so, who went off and fought the Second World War. We don't call the Korea generation the greatest generation. We don't call the Vietnam generation the greatest generation. We don't call the Iraq-Afghanistan warriors that. I think I saw him last night. Saw who? Hamlet, your father. Calm down. Season your admiration means chill, because Hamlet probably starts getting a little jittery. And so Horatio explains what he saw last night, and Bernardo and Marcellus saw each of the 2 nights previously. So now the ghost has appeared 3 times. Hamlet, it's very strange, line 220. Horatio, yeah, it's true though. So we thought we would tell you. You holding watch tonight? Yep. And he was armed. Yep. Topped. Yep. You didn't see his face? No, I did. His visor, called beaver, was up. Was he red or pale? Pale. Did he look angry? His eyes were fixed. In other words, it's not like, I saw this thing and it didn't have any eyes. It had eyes. Hamlet's okay. Beard was grizzled. Yeah, had some silver and gray. What's Hamlet doing? He's making sure this is who he said he is. That is, he's making sure that Horatio is properly describing his dead father. So, Hamlet says on page 1250, line 243 or so, he's going to keep watch. If it assume my noble father's person, I'll speak to it. Assume. Here, that means take the form of, take the place of, take the shape of. It's like usurp. Remember, Horatio asked it, what art thou that usurps this time of night in the fair and warlike form of the dead king? He says, I'll speak to it, though hell itself should gape and bid me hold my peace. That is, if hell should open its mouth in front of me, what's he suggesting? And I'm in the danger of going to hell. Don't tell anyone. Keep it a secret. Okay? They all leave, and Hamlet gets another very short soliloquy. My father's spirit in arms, all is not well. Notice, all. Not something's not right. All means everything is wrong. Why? Where had his father, when he was alive, existed on the social strata? He's at the top. And now he's dead, and he's dressed in arms, and he's coming back as a ghost. That means everything from there down is in turmoil. It's the great chain of being idea. I doubt, meaning I expect some foul play. Oh, I wish the night were come. Till then, sit still, my soul. Why does he tell his soul to sit still? Notice, the very fact that he tells his soul to do that tells us something about his soul. It's bubbling. It's rising up within him. He's going, down, boy. Foul deeds will rise, though all the earth overwhelm them to men's eyes. There's an old phrase, Shakespeare uses it, Chaucer used it before him, murder will out. And what's meant by that is the very crime or the fact of a murder will somehow be revealed. Usually it's the case, the murderer, makes a mistake. Doesn't have the murder planned as well as he or she thought. Okay? Scene 3. We're in Polonius's house. Remember, Polonius is Claudius's right-hand man, chief advisor. And Laertes, Polonius's eldest child, his son, is speaking with Ophelia, his little sister. Laertes is getting ready to go off to Paris to go back to his studies. He's already gotten the king's approval. He's gotten his father's approval. And he talks to her about Hamlet. He says, for Hamlet in the trifling of his favor, hold it a fashion and a toy in blood, a violet in the youth of primy nature, forward not permanent, sweet not lasting, the perfume and suppliance of a minute. He knows Ophelia and Hamlet are spending time together. He says, don't put any importance or significance to that. It's just going to be a fling. It's going to be a short-lived relationship, put it that way. And she says, really? Don't think of it as being important? He says, no. Why? He gives a long speech that essentially says what about Hamlet? And when he says this, it's not about necessarily Hamlet himself personally. It's about Hamlet's place in society. He says Hamlet can't do what for himself? He uses the phrase, he cannot carve out for himself. Why? Carve out meaning he can't make choices for himself. He can't choose who his wife's going to be, as an example, because he's the prince. It wasn't, I'm going to do this out of love. Why not? Because kings, queens, princes, princesses, they have to think not only of themselves, but of what? The good of the state, the good of the country. Princes are often married off to princesses, and princesses to princes. Why? To make alliances between countries. World War I, among all the causes, one of the causes was because all the leaders of the main countries involved, Germany, the UK, and Russia, those leaders, they were all related. Because they were all offspring or grand offspring of Queen Victoria. They were cousins, every one of them. All right? And there's, sibling rivalry kind of going on among them. So he says, Hamlet can't, Hamlet might like you, Ophelia, but he can't choose you to be his wife. For the simple reason she is what? She's Claudius's senior advisor's daughter. She doesn't have a lick of royal blood. She's just a commoner. And I always use this example. The big change between what Prince Charles did in the early 80s, late 80s, when he and Princess Diana got married. She wasn't Princess Diana, she was just Diana Spencer at the time. And when their son, Prince William, married Kate Middleton. The difference was, Kate Middleton is a commoner. She has no royal blood. Family isn't related to the royals as far back as they go. In terms of what's been announced, according to the royal genealogists and all that kind of stuff. Diana Spencer did have royal blood. She was Lady Spencer, all right? According to everything we generally know, when Charles married Diana, he didn't love her. She was pretty much chosen for him. Okay? He was in love at the time. I can't remember her last name. He was in love with Camilla, who is now his wife and queen. All right? He couldn't marry Camilla because, if I remember correctly, I think these dates are right, she was divorced. English law, up until then, forbid a king or queen from marrying a divorcee. It's reached its height back in the 1930s. Edward VII, I think it was. I can never remember what number he was. But Edward, the eldest son of George V, okay, became king when his father died and fell in love with an American divorcee. Her name was Wallis Simpson. Head over heels. And the royal family is collectively called just the firm. The firm said, you got to break it off. This can go nowhere. You can't marry her. He abdicated. He gave up the crown. His little brother, George, who famously had a horrific stutter, okay, became king. Watch the film, The King's Speech. It's all about George overcoming this kind of speech impediment, but it deals with all the other problems with his brother and such. George became king and became George VI. It's through George that we got Elizabeth and then Charles. So this problem of the marriage and marrying a divorcee was very much in Charles's mother's mind in the early 80s when he was old enough, he needed to get married, they had to ensure the monarchy, all that kind of stuff. Long story short, by the time William comes around and is ready to get married, Parliament changes the laws. Okay? Where now a monarch or a prince can marry a divorcee. Actually, it wasn't before William got married, it's after William got married. It was only like 5 or 6 years ago. Parliament changed the law for one specific reason, so that Charles could marry Camilla, the woman he had loved for over 40 years. Okay? Laertes is telling his sister he doesn't get to choose for himself. He's got to think of the royal family and the entire country. Okay? Don't give up, he says, your treasure to him. What's her treasure? Her virginity. Don't sleep with Hamlet. Now, you can see some versions, some films of Hamlet, where Hamlet and Ophelia, man, they're rocking that bed pretty good. According to the text, didn't happen. All right? So, Ophelia says, okay, I'll listen to you, big brother. And then she turns the tables on him. How? She says, line 46, but good my brother, do not as some ungracious pastors do, show me the steep and thorny way to heaven, whilst like a puffed and reckless libertine himself the primrose path of dalliance treads, and recks not his own reed. That is, don't advise me to forego sex while you go off to Paris. I don't know if it had this moniker then or not, but it does now. Paris is also called the city of love. Don't go off to Paris and sleep with all the beautiful women while you're telling me I can't sleep with Hamlet. What's her point? Don't give me this double standard BS. He goes, oh, no, don't worry about that. Okay? Polonius comes in. And he says, Laertes, you're still here? Clock's ticking, man. You should be. So he says, I give you my blessing and some words of advice. So here's the advice. These few precepts, this is line 58, I think, and 59. These few precepts in thy memory, look thou character. Some people think character there means look to your character. Be true to yourself, It's not what he means. This means write these down in your memory. All right? This is significant because in the scene after this, Hamlet's going to meet the ghost. And the ghost is going to tell Hamlet to do something. And Hamlet, after the ghost leaves, is going to wipe from his memory everything he's learned before. Just complete, Men in Black, blue light. Everything's going to be gone except for one thing. Kill Claudius. That is what he's going to inscribe in his mind. All right? So here's what Polonius wants to inscribe in Laertes' mind. Give thy thoughts no tongue. And nor any unproportioned thought his act. So what does it mean to give thy thoughts no tongue? We would say, keep your thoughts to yourself. What is Polonius' occupation? What does he do for the king? He is his chief advisor, his chief counselor. What does an advisor or counselor do? By the very nature of their job, they speak their thoughts. And he's telling his son, keep your thoughts to yourself. Nor, he says, do any unproportioned thought, nor act out any unproportioned thought. What's an unproportioned thought? Unproportioned. Not controlled. Not looked at from beginning to what? What might be the logical consequences of this action? That is, a thought that is put into action. Let's say you come into a bunch of money. You want to build a house. What do you do first? Hire an architect. Because you don't hire the builders first. What do the builders have to have before they can build a house? Blueprints. You got to draw the blueprints first. An unproportioned act would be like building a house without having the plans. You have to plan it out. Okay? So, keep your thoughts to yourself and don't act without thinking it through. Be thou familiar, but by no means vulgar. You've got a gloss down there, common. Does that help? Probably not. I don't know if you at some point in your lives, you'll probably do this. Let's say when you're old like me, you no longer can stay up late and all that kind of stuff. You have a party, you have a bunch of friends over, and you tell them you're, arrive around 5, leave around 11. There will always be somebody, I've had this happen more than once, there will always be somebody who doesn't know when it's time to leave. That's what he's getting at. Being vulgar means being too much around. You ever have that one friend who just always has to be into everything? Those friends thou hast and their adoption tried, that is, you've proven their friendship, grapple them to thy soul with hoops of steel. So bind them to you, metaphorically speaking, what? That the friendship cannot be broken. True friends are those who do what? Stick with you till the bitter end. In other words, you go through an awful lot of crap together. Sometimes that's crap with the friend. And yet the friendship is so strong, it can take that. Okay? Friends are the ones who can say no to friends. If you say no and they give you the bird, that's not a friend. That's his point. But do not dull thy palm with entertainment of each new-hatched, unfledged comrade. New-hatched, brand new friend, unfledged, hasn't gotten its wings yet. That is, it hasn't been tested, it hasn't been tried. Don't assume that the acquaintance you make is a new friend. One of my sons makes all kinds of new friends. He's got a good job, got a really nice Beamer. He'll be at a red light, and somebody else will roll down their window, and amen, want to race, and he's like he's automatically a brand new friend. Doesn't realize what he's getting into. Okay? Beware of entrance to a quarrel. Quarrel there can mean just verbal argument. It can mean battle, fight, physical fight. But being in, bear it that the opposed may beware of thee. So if you get in a fight, do what? Let's say it's a physical fight. Beat the living daylights out of the person. Why? Because you're trying to kill them? No. So that they know never to challenge you again. It's the shock and awe kind of mentality of getting into an argument. If it's a verbal argument, so cut that person down to size that they will never try to get into a verbal argument again. Give every man thy ear, but few thy voice. You know, if Monty Python were doing this, they'd have somebody pull the ear off and hand it. What's it mean? Give every man thy ear. Listen to what others say to you, but few thy voice. Keep your opinions to yourself. And notice the one that comes immediately after that. Take each man's censure, but reserve thy judgment. That may be an explanation of the previous line. Take each man's censure. Dr. Sherman, you didn't really do that right, or you misspoke, or you said something wrong. So listen to that, but don't go, what the hell do you know? Who are you to question? Notice what often happens when someone criticizes. We put that guard up. We want to defend ourselves. He's saying, don't do that. Listen to that criticism, but don't respond. Costly thy habit as thy purse can buy, but not expressed in fancy. That is, buy clothes you can afford, but don't buy the richest stuff you can afford. What would you think if right now, one of the women in the class who's late came and knocked on the door, I let her in, and she came in wearing a wedding dress? You'd probably go, well, that's a little weird. I had that happen one time. Student was a fashion major. And she had to wear the dress because she had to wear it to all her classes, something with her professor. And we were like, wow, you look great, you know. Not appropriate in this setting. That would be gaudy. He's saying, don't dress gaudily. Look nice, but, you know, not over the top. Why? For the apparel oft proclaims the man. You can look at how I'm dressed. If you're a business major and you go over to the BAS, you will not see ever a business professor dressed like this. Maybe on a Friday, you'll see Levi's. Why? They have a dress code. They are supposed to dress how? Anybody know? As they would if they were in the office at like a Fortune 500 company. English professors have never worked in most of us, in Fortune 500 companies. Some have, okay? You'll see the department chair of the Department of English. He always wears suit and tie. Previous chairs didn't. But he's also former military. Captain in the Navy, if I remember correctly. He's very used to that formal dress style. Neither a borrower nor a lender be. For loan oft loses both itself and friend, and borrowing dulleth edge of husbandry. Don't loan a friend, especially an unproven friend, $50. Because if the friend doesn't pay you back the $50, what are you out of? Both the $50 and probably the friend. And borrowing does what? Dulleth the edge of husbandry. Husbandry. Your gloss says thrift. It's not what it means. Husbandry means hard work. It means industriousness, diligence. I mean, why work hard when you can take out a loan? Well, what's the problem? The loan eventually does have to be paid back. Most important part, this above all, to thine own self be true. Why? Because it must follow as the night the day, thou canst not then be false to any man. What does it mean to be true to yourself? To thine own self be true. Notice I'm doing this. Follow your heart. That is, follow your own moral compass. If you do something that inside you know is wrong, then you can't be true to others because you're not even being true to yourself. And Laertes says, got it, Dad. Okay? So exit Laertes, and Polonius says, what were you and Laertes talking about? Oh, something concerning the Lord Hamlet. He says, okay, It's been told to me that Hamlet hath very oft of late given private time to you. Notice, 'tis told me means what, really? I had written on the board the other day, right here, I think it was, 3 different words. Spying, watching, observing. 'Tis told me implies I've been watching, I've been looking, I've been inquiring. Hamlet's been spending a lot of time with you privately. So he tells her, you do not understand yourself so clearly as it behooves my daughter and your honor. You're not acting appropriately, Ophelia, as my daughter and as defending your honor. What's between you? What's going on between you and Hamlet? Come on, tell me. Well, he's kind of said he likes me. He's made many tenders of his affection. Affection? You speak like a green girl. What does green girl mean? Young, tender, naive. Do you believe his tenders, as you call them? What are his tenders? We're going to find out later. Letters, poems, gifts. So what do you think about these tenders? She goes, I don't know, my lord, what I should think. I don't know what Hamlet intends, is what she's really saying. So Polonius says, then I'm going to teach you. Think yourself a baby that you've taken these tenders for true pay, and you've got a gloss, that the tender there promises to pay, like a promissory note. So he's relating Hamlet's affection now to money, essentially. You've taken that as true, real money. And Polonius is going to say his tenders are like what? Monopoly money. They're not sterling. That is true money. So, she says, he hath importuned me with love in honorable fashion. He has importuned. He's wined and dined me. He's wounded me. She says honorably. What has Hamlet not said? Come on, Ophelia, sleep with me. It won't hurt. You won't be any less. You won't suffer anything. Your honor, don't worry about honor. It's fun, She says he's given countenance to his speech with almost all the holy vows of heaven. Notice you don't have any gloss there. What's meant by almost all the holy vows of heaven? Like marriage vows. Almost. Almost is only good in what? Horseshoes and hand grenades. Being close only counts there. He hasn't said, by God in heaven, I want to marry you and nothing else, okay? So, Polonius says these almost holy vows are what? Springs to catch woodcocks. You've got a gloss. Traps to catch birds. What's Polonius then gives a long speech where he says largely what Polonius says, but he adds a negative tinge to it. Laertes implied Hamlet may be virtuous. He may really intend what he says, but he still doesn't get to choose for himself. Polonius says what about Hamlet's intentions? Ophelia, come on, don't be so stupid. We all know what Hamlet wants. He wants what every man wants. He wants to get you in bed, period. On what basis is he saying this? He, Polonius, is a man. He, Polonius, was once young. He's going to essentially admit that in a little bit. Okay? So he says, from this time forth, stay away from Hamlet. Don't let him in your room. Don't receive any gifts from him. And she says, okay, I will. I obey. All right? Night comes. Hamlet, Marcellus, Bernardo, Horatio are keeping watch. Okay? They're out there on the battlements and they hear what's going on in the castle. I mean, it is the biggest frat and sorority party you can imagine. They are whooping and hollering and just having a grand old time. The beer is flowing. The king doth wake tonight and takes his rouse, keeps wassail, etc. Horatio, is it a custom? That is this normal? Hamlet, it is. But to my mind, though I am native here, and to the manner born, that is, to this manner of carousing and such, it is a custom more honored in the breach than the observance. What nationality is Hamlet? Danish. Okay? I don't know that Shakespeare knew this. In fact, I take this back. Shakespeare did not know this work I'm going to refer to in just a moment. The Old English epic poem Beowulf. All right? The character of the Danes, or the Danish people, figure largely in the first half of the poem. Because the character Beowulf is not Danish, but he comes to the land of the Danes to rid them of the monster Grendel. Some of you probably read this or parts of it in high school. One thing becomes very clear in that poem about the Danes. They're nothing but a bunch of drunks. Evening comes, the sun goes down, and they start throwing back, gallons of ale. So that every night when Grendel comes, the reason the Danes get slaughtered is because they're drunk. I mean, the poet actually uses the phrase, translated into modern English, dead to the world, drunk. They don't even feel it when Grendel pulls them up off the ground and starts eating them. They're so far gone, all right? Hamlet is saying the same thing about the Danes. That's why he says it's more honored in the breach, not getting drunk every night, okay? So he talks about, this defect of the people, etc., and the ghost comes in. Hamlet says, line 39, angels and ministers of grace defend us. Okay, angels are ministers of grace. Angels are ministers, they're messengers. Ministers of grace means those bringing grace to us. God brings grace to people via angels. It's at least one way. Be thou a spirit of health or goblin dam, bring with the airs from heaven or blast from hell. Be thy intents wicked or charitable, thou comest in such a questionable shape that I will speak to thee. I'll call thee Hamlet, king, father, royal, Dane. Answer me. So notice what he said. Whether you come from heaven or from hell, whether you come to bring grace or damnation, I don't care. I don't care. Why? You look like my father. I'll call thee Hamlet, king, father, royal. Speak. Let me not burst in ignorance. Why burst? What does he mean? Let me not burst in ignorance. What happens if a person bursts? I don't mean literally. He doesn't mean literally. What did he say to his heart earlier? But peace, break my heart. Let me not die in ignorance, not knowing. See, to be ignorant is not a bad thing necessarily. I'm ignorant about a hell of a lot of things. It just means not knowing. Hamlet doesn't want to die ignorant of what? is this my father? and what does he come for? But tell why thy canonized bones, hearsed in death, have burst their cerements. Canonized, buried with all the proper prayers by the church. Okay? Why the sepulchre, wherein we saw thee quietly interred, hath oped his ponderous and marble jaws to cast thee up again. See, it's not natural for the dead to rise. They're supposed to stay dead. And in some ceremonies, in some branches of the Christian church, when a person is buried, they put in the casket or coffin's just before it gets lowered in the ground, the priest can come up with a cross and bang on that casket 3 times and say, I seal thee until the final day, that is, judgment day, resurrection, when all the graves will be opened. Why are you open now? It's not judgment day. What may this mean, that thou dead corse, there's that word again that we talked about that first day, again in complete steel revisits thus the glimpses of the moon. Why are you here? And the ghost does this. Like, I'll talk to you. Horatio, don't go. Marcellus says, do not go with it. Horatio, no. Hamlet, it won't speak. I'll follow it. Don't. Why? What should be the fear? Why should I be afraid of going with the ghost? I do not set my life at a pin's fee. Fee means worth. Pin, like, not this kind of pin. He's talking about like a little stick pin. Meaning, I don't care if I live. We've already been told that, right? Oh, that this too sullied flesh. And for my soul, what can it do to that, being a thing immortal as itself? In other words, yeah, okay, it can cause me to die, but it can't touch my soul. I'll follow it. What if it took thee towards the flood? That is, to jump in the ocean or in a river. It's foreshadowing, by the way, because we're going to see a character drown. Whether it's accidental or intentional is unclear. Or to the summit of the cliff, etc. What if it caused you to commit suicide, in other words? Or that the Almighty had not fixed his canon against self-slaughter. Then your soul would be in trouble, Hamlet. I'm going to follow it. Okay? So Hamlet goes off with the ghost. Scene 5. Whither wilt thou lead me? I'm not going any farther. You stop and talk. Mark me. That is, pay attention. My hour is almost come when I to sulphurous and tormenting flames must render up myself. Ooh, what does that sound like? Sulphurous and tormenting flames? Lake of fire? Hell? Alas, poor ghost, pity me not, but lend thy serious hearing to what I shall unfold. Speak! I'm bound to hear. So art thou to revenge. And there we have the revenge tragedy rear its head. When thou shalt hear, what? That is, what shall I hear? I am thy father's spirit, doomed for a certain term to walk the night, and for the day confined, that is during the day, I am confined, we're told, to fast in fires. Your gloss says, probably do without food. Utterly asinine. I mean, it's like a moron with an IQ of 30 said that. I mean, it is just ridiculous. Why? How many of you have seen Pirates of the Caribbean? What is Barbarossa's problem? The pirate captain. And he can't enjoy food. He's got that scene where he drinks some booze and the moon shines and it just goes through him. He can't taste an apple. He has no sensory perceptions. And for him, that's really the hell. This has nothing to do with fasting from food. He's dead. He says to fast in fires. The rest of the gloss, it has been sometimes taken in the sense of doing general penance. To fast, however, can also refer to be bound, to be fixed in fires, not being able to escape, in other words. Okay? Till the foul crimes done in my days of nature are burnt and purged away. Protestant belief system, you die, final judgment, you either go to heaven or you go to hell. Before the final judgment, in the Catholic belief system, you have purgatory. You die, and if you're quote unquote saved, the vast majority of people go to purgatory. Why? Because they still have to be purified before they can go to heaven. If you go to hell, that's it. You don't get out of hell. If you go to purgatory, you don't ever go to hell. Purgatory is like the front porch to heaven. You get to go in. You never have to go back out. So you might be here a long time, millions of years. But eventually, you get there. All right? Has Shakespeare just introduced the doctrine of purgatory? Till the foul crimes done in my days of nature, those foul deeds done when I was alive, those sins are what? Burnt and purged away. That's purgatory. But that I am forbidden to tell the secrets of my prison house, like a tale unfold, whose lightest word would harrow up thy soul. If I could tell you, son, of what I see, it would kill you. Notice, harrow up thy soul. Earlier we heard someone talk about it harrows the soul, and your gloss said lacerates the feelings. No, it means to rapture you, to remove your soul from your body. So he says, I'm not going to talk about that. It's pretty bad. All right? If thou didst ever thy dear father love, oh God. Why does Hamlet say, oh God, at that point? What has Hamlet Sr.'s ghost just started to do? Drop the hammer. Hamlet knows something big's coming. Revenge is foul and most unnatural murder. Well, isn't all murder unnatural? Yes. It goes against nature. But his is most foul and unnatural. Why? Brother against brother. In one sense, you could say that is the most natural murder. Because where does murder trace all of its lines back to? Cain and Abel in the Garden of Eden. A most rank, unweeded garden. Murder most foul is in the best it is, but this most foul, strange, and unnatural. Hamlet, haste me to know it. And with wings as swift as meditation or the thoughts of love, may sweep to my revenge. Tell me who, and it's done. Like, I'll leave from here and go kill the other person. It doesn't happen for the next, 60 pages? It's days. So the ghost, I think you're ready. And he tells him, you heard how I went to sleep in my orchard in the garden and a serpent stung me in the ear? Yeah. No. The serpent that stung me wears the crown. Serpent, garden, notice the imagery. All right? That serpent was your uncle. Oh, my prophetic soul. What's Hamlet mean? Line 40. Why was his soul prophetic? He knows something's not right about Claudius being king and his mother marrying him so quickly. My uncle, that incestuous, that adulterate beast, etc. So what did he do? Killed me in the garden, poured poison in my ear, and is now sleeping with my wife. Okay? But he says, oh, I can sense the morning coming. I got to be quick. So he explains, demonstrates, describes how he was killed. And Hamlet says when the ghost leaves. Let me back up. The king says, dead king says, he died with all my imperfections, line 79, on my head. That is, I died how? Unconfessed. You know what you've seen movies and such? What are the last rites? A Catholic is about to die. Catholic priest comes in, performs the last rites. Those last rites are to cleanse that person of sins. So that when that person dies, they don't go to purgatory. They go straight to hell, heaven. Oops. Here's a Freudian slip. They go straight to heaven. If they don't get last rites, if they're a Christian, they go to purgatory. And those sins have to be purged out. He says, I died, to use the phrase that's used later, unshriven. Okay? He wasn't allowed to say confession. You go to Catholic or Orthodox, I'm Orthodox, you go to confession, at the end of it, the priest absolves you of whatever sins you've confessed. All right? Wiped away. You walk out of there clean as a baby, so to speak. Then he says, but to your mother, let me back up. But howsoever thou pursues this act, that is, kill your uncle, taint not thy mind. What does it mean to taint something? If this were white paint, and you can see that it's all white, or I had a gallon of white paint in here, and I came in here with an eyedropper with 1 drop of black paint, and dropped that 1 drop into a gallon of white paint, or 500 gallons of white paint. That white paint is no longer 100% pure white. It's now tainted. So he says, don't taint your mind. Don't let your mind go all crazy, in other words. All right? Also, he then says, don't do anything against your mother. Leave her to heaven. Ghost leaves. Hamlet. O you host of heaven, O earth, what else? Shall I couple hell? That is, unite heaven, earth, hell. Hold my heart. That is, stay together. And you, my sinews grown not instant old, remember thee, whiles memory holds a seat in this distracted globe. And Hamlet should point to his mind, or to his head. Why? He's distracted up here. What does distracted mean? Oh, that this too sullied flesh would thaw, melt, resolve itself into a dew, or that the canon had not fixed his, Almighty had not fixed his canon against self-slaw. He's distracted. He's not seeing clearly. All right? Remember thee? Okay, yeah, I'm going to remember you. Here's how much. From the table of my memory, I'll wipe away all trivial fond records. All trivial memories. Whoosh, gone. All stalls of books, that is everything I've learned from books, all my great university education, all forms, all pressures past. Everything that's been impressed on his mind from birth to now. Gone. Here's the thing that's going to live in his mind. Kill Claudius. What has he just done with that gallon of white paint? He's replaced it. with another, whatever the other color. He's not tainted his mind. He's done what? Think of his mind as a hard drive. He's reformatted it and formatted it now for one thing only: kill. Notice, he's not following his father's command. Okay? All right, we'll stop there. We're going to pick up back with this scene whenever it is we come back. Oh, we did not get nearly where we needed to. Page 1259, Act 1, Scene 5 on Tuesday. We'll have to get through Act 3 somehow, or at least all of Act 2, by Tuesday, end of class.